Welcome to the Tomorrow's World Today podcast. We sit down with experts, world-changing innovators, creators, and makers to explore how they're taking action to make tomorrow's world a better place for technology, science, innovation, sustainability, the arts, and more. On this episode, host George Davison, who is also the host of the TV series Tomorrow's World Today, sits down with Vic Bhatia, former CEO of U.S. Pipe, a company owned by Forterra Corporation. Vic shares his journey from a middle school fascination with the stock market to becoming a seasoned business problem solver. He discusses his approach to tackling complex challenges in the waterworks industry and the importance of resilience.
So can we chat a little bit about yourself and this company that you work for? So tell me, you're president of this organization. You weren't always president, right? You did start out somehow. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got started in life?
Gosh, I'll try and be brief in the story and then let me know where you think it may be interesting to dig in. But as the president of U.S. Pipe, I acquired this position after working with the parent company, Forterra. And Forterra was a series of companies that had been bought, and my job was to help integrate them so that the owner could ultimately make more money.
Understood.
And through the course of doing that, I learned a lot about U.S. Pipe, the ductile iron pipe, and the waterworks industry, and grew to be the president of this business. My background before that was, I guess the journey starts really in middle school when I first learned about the stock market. And I was a smart kid, and I got picked on in middle school for being a smart kid several times. May have started as early as elementary school. But what I learned was through the stock market that business was this discipline where smart people could find a way to win and to make money, and it was almost a complete meritocracy where the amount of effort you put into it, the amount of discipline that you had, and the types of things that you did, and the bets that you took on yourself, that could all translate to success. And I thought, well, this is something I may be interested in. So you carry that through high school. I then got a undergraduate business degree. But at that point, it kind of ran out, and I thought, well, gosh, what do I want to do in business? I hadn't had to think about that. I became a consultant, and for 14 years, I absolutely loved it. I learned about a number of different industries. I learned about the challenges that so many different companies were having and how to solve those challenges. And it got to the point where I wanted to know what happened when I left. Because as a consultant, I got to know their issues, I got to know their industries, I got to help them solve their problems, but I wasn't always there to see it through.
Interesting.
And so I decided to leave consulting, and what I discovered was a lot of the things that we consulted on worked, and they worked really well. And that gave me the confidence to say I can solve problems in the business world, not just as a consultant. After that, I effectively became what I would refer to as a turnaround guy, where I go into businesses that have deep-seated problems, and it may take them a few years to fix them, and that's ultimately where I seem to have the most fun, and that's what I've learned about myself, and that's where the journey has brought me.
Interesting. So you've had a life of identifying challenges in, let's say, several different industries as a consultant. You've polished your observational skills, your listening skills, so that you can develop ideas on how to solve some of these problems, right? That is a good stepping point into the world of STEM and STEAM, science, technology, engineering, art, and math, is something that we like to talk about quite a bit. And what you're mentioning is solving problems and identifying how to do that to the benefit of some company. You can do that with projects too, right? So you can utilize your observational skills, knuckle down on it, use your brain, come up with ideas, and see if that might solve a problem. What do you do, though, if the problem isn't solved right away? I'm sure you didn't have every problem that you solved was like the right idea every time, right?
No, absolutely not. Yeah. And what I think about problem solving, to me, the concept of problem solving is its skill set in its own right. Because there's no one way to solve a problem. But the concept of getting up to speed very quickly, right? In consulting, you have to work in new industries, sometimes every 3 to 4 weeks, sometimes every 3 to 4 months, sometimes every year. But you have to learn a new business. You have to learn a new industry. And so to solve the problem, I have to learn to come up to speed very quickly. And then you have to figure out, well, I can't solve every element of the problem. Therefore, I have to form hypotheses.
Mm-hmm.
And what are my hypotheses of what could be the underlying cause, and how would I solve it? And you spend a lot of time doing diligence on those. And you're right. A lot of times, my hypotheses were not correct. And in that situation, just like the problem-solving process, coming back to what do I know for certain? Where else can I head? What have I not seen? And just keep down that process until ultimately you either figure out how to solve the problem, or the problem seems to resolve itself in some ways. Because business itself transitions and migrates and evolves. Organizations evolve. Industries evolve. Communities evolve.
People evolve, right?
And a lot of that changes the nature of the problem, if not does not solve the problem itself, where, and I think as a problem solver, you're helping affect the evolution, because all those things ultimately need to come together to solve the problem.
So you were able to get a lot of life experiences, and as you're gathering life experiences, you're building skill sets. You can look at problems lots of different ways and maybe come up with a solution faster. Is that a fair assumption?
That is a fair assumption. And I think what I would say is the most important thing is not trying to get every bit of information before trying to solve the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And where I saw great problem solvers from those that didn't always succeed, the ones who didn't were no less smart, and they were no less ambitious, and they had no less effort, but it was the effort to try and collect so much information thinking there's a black and white answer to the problem, when in reality a lot of the solutions are in gray matter,
Yes.
and you're doing the best you can through an inductive process, and therefore you actually solve problems faster, and you're more interested in the journey of the problem, because as the problem seems to evolve and change, you kind of know where to head.
Yes.
So as the game changes on you, you're one step ahead.
Nice. Yeah, that's a good way to say it. I enjoy identifying possible solutions too, and enjoying the journey as you're going forward. I don't mind falling. I don't mind failing and getting back up again. And it's not a one-time, you come up with the right answer and off we go. You have had a long career. You're working at it every day. You've earned now this position. And we want to, just see what else we can extract from you, right? So, we do have a lot of people out there who can learn from, let's say, some of the relatable stories you might have that would be something that's similar to them in their world. So can you talk about the household environment that you grew up in? Did you have mentors? Did you have positive, supportive parents?
I did have a very happy family. Middle income, growing up in the suburbs of Atlanta. And, my parents came from India, and I was the firstborn in the U.S., and expectations were pretty high that we were going to succeed. And in some ways, I saw what my parents went through to give us that opportunity and the risks they took.
Yes.
And I thought, I kind of owe it to the process to see how this plays out. Grades were heavily emphasized. Achievements were heavily emphasized. But I also appreciated being well-rounded. And what I mean by that is it wasn't all grades. I played sports, I ran, and I swam. And I think some of the lessons I picked up from being an athlete in terms of just resilience, perseverance, not being good at something the first time, the rewards of practice. I think there's a lot that we can learn from sports.
Yes.
And so I think the combination of sports and a demanding household, but not overly onerous, right? I don't want to present it as that, but the expectations were high.
So, there are advantages to coming from another country, right? Your family wanted to come here and maybe find a better life. Would that be a fair assumption?
That would be.
Okay. And when we don't have really what we would like in life, it can be a strength when utilized properly, and it sounds like it was here. There's an old saying, if you have a back in the corner, be careful, don't go in that corner, because superhuman strength can come out of that corner. So being in the challenged world of wanting to do better, it's a beautiful place to be, because you can make a great life, in my opinion, just chasing experiences where if you inherit everything or your life is just all given to you, sometimes you want to think, I just want to be the rich guy, or I want to be the rich kid. And people don't understand that those kids are challenged as well. They have so many things already. What are they going to chase in life? So wealthy, middle class, low class, they all have things to chase. We just have to figure it out and what's important to us, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Early on, and I remember writing college essays about this, I really appreciated learning people's stories.
Mm.
And it was just something that, it reminded me that everybody's got a story. And be it a happy story, be it a sad story, there's a story behind every person that I don't know.
Yes.
And taking the time to learn that, and then wanting to be a part of it in some way, that inspired me. And it could have been the smallest of things, or who knows what. As I'm saying this, I'm actually reminded of a situation where I had a high school coach, and the story seems negative because I lost a 2-mile race on the track at the very last moment. I didn't see the guy till after the finish line.
Mm.
And my coach was egging me on, and after the race, I remember he said, "You don't have the heart to run. You should have won that race." I remember that decades later. But what I remember was the feeling I had when he said that was, no, I gave it my all. And somewhere I knew I was content. I didn't need his validation, and his words just brushed right off my shoulder.
Good for you.
And I think something like that young, that has stuck with me this long,
Yes.
has reminded me that I got to do what I can do. I got to control what I can control. And if I do that, no matter what happens, I'm going to be content with myself.
Isn't that wonderful? And that's a great spot to be in. If you're building confidence and you're confident in your ability that you gave it an all, that's good enough. Not everybody's going to be the straight A or taking the first place in every race, right? Mm-hmm. But as long as you come out of there and you're mentally strong and say, I can go on from here, I can continue my chase of life, all the more power to you, because there are other races coming. There are other challenges coming, and you need to prepare for those.
Well, and I think that if I fast forward just past high school and I think about the journey that got me to where I am today,
mm-hmm.
It wasn't a particular class. It wasn't a particular any one step, but the lessons that I have taken over the course of the last several years are what we just talked about. It's also around the concept of resilience. And, right, when you fail, try to fail fast and then get back up and learn from it.
Right.
And I do hope that people fail earlier than I did. Because of, I had a lot of great success in high school and college and when I got my master's. But had I experienced failure sooner, I think I would have learned more from it, and I don't know where that trajectory could have taken me.
Interesting. I haven't heard it said that way before. That's some good wisdom there. And
if I go back to high school, I think there were a couple times when I should have taken a chance. I should have rolled the dice. Shouldn't have played it straight.
Interesting.
And I think that life skill that I would have learned would have been more valuable than whatever grade I got from playing it straight and doing what I was supposed to do.
So when you say playing it straight, you mean just like studying head down and not taking the risk of, exploring something else? Is that what you mean?
Exactly.
So explore and try to find different things in life that might appeal to you, that might turn on your light to say, I want to become more advanced in this area.
Sure. And even if you don't think it is,
mm-hmm.
I'm not a great artist or a dancer. Do I wish I would have taken more art and dance? I do.
Interesting, yeah.
Because that challenge and what I would have learned about myself by taking on that challenge as opposed to something I was comfortable with, it probably would have helped me out. Now, I did do that later in my career
mm-hmm.
when I figured out that there was value. But if I could go back to high school and do it over again, I'd roll the dice a little bit more in high school.
All right. Well, you heard it right there. So let's chat for a second. Let's see if we can get down into the weeds on, you have 3 kids, right?
I do have 3 kids.
If I was going to ask you, tell me if I was one of your children and you were going to share something with me, I was in high school, what do you think would be some words of wisdom that you might share with me to get me on a path in life?
That's a very good question. One of the things that we talk a lot about and that I believe in, and I think they would share, is just the saying that good things happen to good people. And if you think about all the pressures that you may experience, the concept of just being a good person, true to who you are, the reward may not come in that moment or the next day or the next week, but the character you build, the way people get to know you, I think ultimately leads to good outcomes and great success.
I agree with you. When you're doing the right things, you build trust. And when you're able to build trust with those around you. They start to be able to rely on you, right?
They do. And then all of a sudden good things happen, and you would love to try to draw the link between why did this and that. But at the end of the day, if your trajectory is positive, it's probably because you built up a lot of that good stuff by being a good person.
And that's how opportunities come about, right?
That is absolutely true.
Vic, I can't thank you enough for coming in here today and sharing your story. Do you have anything that you'd like to offer at the close to our audience?
I would say that success is something that people, I think a lot about. What do I want to be successful in? How do I want to define success? There are a number of ways to define it, but I think achieving success comes from the inner discipline to know that if you give it your best, you do what you can do, you should be okay with that. Right. And it's not about how the outside world wants to judge that as much as how you want to learn from that and keep building on yourself. And then I think that, education is something which I don't think is only in high school or only in college. I love learning. And even today, if I see a new topic, a new something, like I want to dig in, I want to keep learning about it. And I would say that, just remembering that the concept of learning is not something that happens at a moment in time or a place in time. It's a concept that you have inside yourself. And if you think about it that way, it'll serve you well for decades to come. I don't know how you couldn't be successful if you just kind of had those intrinsic qualities that you truly stayed true to and pursued.
Thank you for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Tomorrow's World Today podcast. Join us next time as we continue to explore the worlds of inspiration, creation, innovation, and production. Discover more at tomorrowsworldtoday.com, connect with us on social media at TWT Explore, and find us wherever podcasts are available.